Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Axis of Genius, episode 9. My name is Blake Chalfant, joined by my co-host, David Henry Rickenbach, DH. So good to be back here with all of you, or with no one at all. It is December 30th, so this is the last pod of 2025. So we're coming at you live, 2025. So we were just talking before we got going, and I thought it was interesting, so we decided to hit record. And you were just talking about the psychological effect and feeling of when you hit record versus just talking without the record button on. I think that's so interesting. And you were starting to speak about letting go of the idea that you're speaking to some imaginary crowd. And yeah, I think it's interesting because people have different perspectives on this, and there's one idea that like holding the perspective that no one will ever watch this, no one will ever see this, no one cares at all. And I think that can feel really nourishing. And there's other times where it can feel nourishing to actually imagine like you're talking to a crowd full of 5,000 people who are watching you. It feels like both kind of have a place. And in this moment, though, I like the idea that it's just you and I having a conversation. And, when I think about the people that I love to listen to, it does have that feel. Like it feels like they're just in a room, just them two, like no one's watching, and they're just two friends having a good time, having a conversation. Like there's that air of comfortability and non-performance that's so nourishing. So maybe you can keep going with what you were speaking to before we got going here.
Yeah. And as you're speaking to, it's bringing back some memories. As I'm thinking now about how contextually relevant it is to decide whether, nobody's watching, therefore I'm just going to let loose, versus somebody specific is watching, therefore I'm going to curate my speech to that person, versus the intimacy of just being here together and like being in the conversational fodder, which I do think is one of our strong points, if I do say so myself. But the thing that actually came to mind, which is a bit out of left field, I haven't thought about this in a while, is back in my early days of high school, the early days, the yesteryears, all that
All
time
10
ago.
years ago.
All that time ago. I remember like one of those things that felt like it was like the, muse, the daemon tapping on my shoulder, is when I would go to concerts and stuff. Back then it was like Linkin Park or, Rage
Nice.
Against the Machine or, these different shows. I was always like really frustrated that people weren't dancing. And it was like one of like those first like deep senses of like anger. How, like people say like, the circle of your anger is like the size of your purpose or something like this. Like the size of how pissed off you are about something is like, that's the degree to which you'll actualize your purpose. You ever heard that kind of idea?
No, but I like that actually.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of reformatting it a little bit, but that's like the basic idea, right? Is like to the degree that you're in touch with something that infuriates you about the world is to the
Yeah.
degree that you've got like the spark around your purpose.
Yeah. Wow. I really love that.
Yeah. So maybe we'll bookmark that and circle around to it. For me, this was definitely one of those things where I'd be at like a Rage Against the Machine show and I'd be like, nobody's dancing? Like, what is the deal here? And for me, I just love dancing. I love moving. And so that was like one of my first like little rebellions. It was like my own little personal revolution to be like, I don't care if I look crazy here. I literally want to dance. I want to move. I want to like, be present with this music in the way that I love. And so for me, the mindset was 100%, I don't give a fuck if people are judging me. And then I would even like have like a little bit of that like what is it, the stoic idea of like memento mori, or like the awareness that you're gonna die. I would go to that place where I'd be like, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, man.
I don't like, no one's gonna give a fuck. The universe is not gonna care whether I danced or didn't dance. I'm gonna dance. And I'd say like in my early days, like let's just call it 16 or something, to when I discovered ecstatic dances and five rhythms and all this, that was like a total angel on my shoulder, was just like, I want to dance. I don't care what other people are going to think. And there's so much liberation in that.
Yeah. Damn, bro, you were killing it in high school.
In some
I would have
ways.
been the dude with the friends in the corner looking at you who internally secretly wants to dance, who's looking at this he's looking at you and like loser.
Yeah. I'm sure there was a lot of that going on. I just blocked it out.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Maybe we want to get a little bit more into that idea of the anger and the passion.
Yeah.
That was juicy, man. Eh,
Right. Right. The idea of how, like, to the degree something infuriates you is to the degree that like that's your dharma.
mhm.
I've definitely felt into it at times and been like, should I be more pissed off about stuff? Like maybe I'm a little bit too accepting of how things are.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, what's it sparking for you over there?
Well, it makes me think about what we've talked about before with the lightning strike and the lightning wielder, and because I also see there's a lot of people who get caught in the anger, maybe, and the anger never actually turns into like
Mm-hmm.
generative action or a creation or a project or something. Like it doesn't have anywhere to go. It doesn't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's what it comes up for me. So there's something so incredibly valuable and important, I think, about just letting that rage. I've definitely felt that kind of rage that you're speaking to of like, what are we doing, Western culture? Like we're all like politely sitting there and no one's dancing and no like I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure all of you want to dance. You're just scared and you're waiting for that one person to start dancing, then the second, and then finally you'll get in there like, just feeling that level of like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but then hopefully that anger turns into something.
Yeah. Well, we were listening to that Huberman podcast. I've been like joking.
Huberman.
Huberman. We've been listening to Andrew Huberman.
Dr. Huberman.
We were thinking about naming our baby Huberman. It could be a very distinguished name. Little Hoob. So we were listening to Huberman.
Uh,
It's like the gold standard. Yeah. So Huberman, and he had that guest on. He was a very distinguished Stanford guest, and he's like, "Why are people so scared to talk in public?" And he's riffing on the evolutionary origins, which actually really I feel like is a good explanation. Which is he was saying that to the extent that we're scared to talk in public is because on a deeply evolutionary level we're scared of our status going down, and we need to have status for resources and reproduction. Like, it's that classic image,
mhm.
like you're in a tribe of 150 people. If your status is in jeopardy because you said the wrong thing or you offended the
Yeah,
wrong person or the taboo, like literally, like your life is on the line, or you're gonna go hungrier that night.
yeah,
It's like all the pecking orders and stuff that you have to be like very conscientious of. And so where this brings me, now I'm just throwing stuff on the table, is, one of the things Naval talks about, which is like we're in such an inversion time where, in the evolutionary history, it's like you got to play your cards really carefully and you have to be really mindful of your status. It's life or death. But in our current status or current society, our civilization rewards relentless failure to strike gold on success. And I think in the Chris Williamson podcast, he uses the example of dating, where you can just date again and again and again and again. And you can have
right.
50 bad dates and it doesn't really matter until you have like one good date, which, you know, in like a medieval village, you can't date 50 people. The system just doesn't reward that level of failure. It's like if you made yourself a fool and your reputation's on the line, like, and you'll end up at the tavern with all the other fools. So,
Wow, that's really interesting. Is part of what you're articulating that we evolved we evolved in an environment where doing the quote unquote wrong thing, saying the wrong thing, uh, was incredibly threatening, potentially, like threatening to the most basic aspects of our survival.
hmm
Whereas now our society is kind of evolving through making a lot of mistakes, because to strike gold, you have to make a lot of mistakes, and how those are kind of opposing.
hmm yeah, it's an inversion. I mean, even think about what you're doing on like just completing your Instagram challenge for like 30 days of articulating yourself. It's like the script is like if I consistently express myself and I hone in and I get to the place where like the signal is really true and deep resonance and all this goodness comes through, like people resonating with what's really wanting to come inside. Or I'm going to go a little tangential here. I have a fascination with Mr. Beast. And I wanted to share this with you actually because he just had a video release of him being 10 years ago. He made a video that he released like time capsule style it was released in October. And in that video, he's like 17 and he's sitting in his room and he's like in a totally desolate situation. It's actually really interesting to check out because Mr. Beast made like a reaction video of him watching it in 10 years. And he kind of unpacks the whole background. But
Whoa.
basically in this video, the young Jimmy, 17 years old, he's like, man, I better have 1 million subs by the time, this video comes out. And he's just like there lamenting in his room. He says it like 10 times, like, I better have 1 million subs. Like, oh man, it would really suck if I don't have 1 million subs. And I was just thinking about, man, like Jimmy was so owning it. Like we were talking about this in the last episode of like, or whenever we were talking last about like how difficult it can be in our spiritual culture to like own that you want followers.
Yeah.
And like I think Jimmy was like the exact opposite in the sense of like he was like obsessed with it. He was just like he said it like 10 times in this video, like I better have 1 million subs. And Jimmy in the reaction video, now being 10 years later, he's like, don't worry, you have 453 million subs. Like, he kind of nailed it. You have like 10 channels, they all have more than 1 million subs. Like it's just like the actual place he landed was astronomical. But in
Yeah.
that particular instance, Jimmy, like 14 to let's call it 20, was relentlessly failing, like so hard. He was in the grind of no one watching for years. And then, like, he talks about like people in his high school basically just thinking he was a total loser because all he would talk about is YouTube. And then at a certain point, people thought he was mute because he was so like hurt by people saying that no one cares about YouTube that he just
Yeah.
stopped talking altogether. And so it's just like a total fascinating journey of just like in say evolutionary terms, you
Yeah.
know, he might have been like extricated from the village and his survival would have been on the line.
Right.
In our civilization, he stayed on the grind and now he's quite literally like one of the most famous people of all time.
That's so interesting, man. You gotta send that video. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes because that's inspiring. That's really inspiring. I think it's a testament to like we all started there. He started the same place. Um, really cool. This is making me think about an idea that we've definitely talked before that I know you have a lot of cool ideas on, but the idea that um because we're not in tribal society anymore, because of the nature of our society and kind of the uh individualist nature of it, which 100% has its downsides, which we've talked a lot about, and it also has some beautiful parts of it. It opens opportunities on like a individual experience level that we didn't have in the tribe. And I think one of those is like the depth to which we are able to explore our dharma, like our
Mhm.
individual expression and in exploring these, unique forms of expression and things like this that just was not the same in a tribal culture. Um, that is really, really cool. And so, I think about these opposing forces that it was not beneficial to make mistakes living in a tribe is like keep your shit together all the way, yada yada. But then you look at someone like Mr. Beast or what's required to do really meaningful work in our time now, and it is the opposite. It's like failing relentlessly to the point of striking gold. Um, and I think there is kind of a funny God wink there from like nature and how that evolutionary process took shape, and the fact that it isn't super easy to fail now,
Mhm.
how much feels like it's on the line for us. I think it's like a beautiful just part of the growth journey. But maybe we can start there. I know I just laid a lot out, but this idea of the opportunity we have because we don't live in that culture, that those kinds of societies anymore, to really explore the full like individuated nature of who we are. that maybe to some degree to maybe was like always there. It just that kind of environment wasn't really built to um, for us to fully express in that way. And
Yeah.
maybe that's even short-sighted. Maybe I'm wrong there, but
Hmm.
it does
Hmm.
seem like, in a way, even though people would look at the entire evolutionary history of us into Western culture, into the society we're in, as like a mistake or something happened wrong, there
Yeah.
does seem to be another perspective where maybe it's perfect. Maybe this is what was supposed to happen, and we just haven't fully discovered what the gift in all of it is, and that's kind of where we're at now. Is
Yeah.
is fighting to discover the gift.
Yeah, man. I'm deep in the dichotomies as you're speaking, like heaven and hell, the attention economy, what it means to be quote unquote relevant to people. And the image that I actually am getting is like how when you're, say, like alone in your room, when I'm alone in my room, there's this sense between like that, this heaven and hell, and the sense of like, on the one hand, it's like our civilization has optimized for like incredible amounts of access to information. So it's like the internet, Wikipedia, AI, blah, blah, blah. It's like I can kind of learn anything I need to at any particular moment. That's incredible. Most of the time, it's very, very overwhelming, probably extremely underutilized in my own life, probably very underutilized in many people's lives. But we
Hmm.
have this proverbial breadcrumb. At any particular point, you could probably learn anything you need to. So like that knowledge gap is very closed. But then what I'm thinking about is like in the space when you're like alone in your room, like as an artist, it's kind of like in the times of yesteryear, it's like you probably had to show up to, do your work, like kind of clock in, clock out, get paid for the commission, get your bread and cheese kind of thing. And it's like if you don't show up, grind it out, then you're just not going to live. It's like the practical details of being able to survive were probably so in our face and so inescapable
Hmm.
that it's
Like
just
in
like
tribal society.
tribal society. Or I have this like vague image of like being in medieval Europe, or
Okay.
like even like the glorified Renaissance times, where it's like to
Yeah.
be an artist was probably to be like under the servitude of a duke or like a king who commissioned specific work.
Mm.
It's like the idea of like an artist as we think of it in our modern conception is in like this totally wild, bizarre, like sphere of abundance where it's like we have so much material wealth to the point where I think many people like Steven Pinker make the point that like our actual basis of material wealth of this present moment is like exceedingly greater than kings of yesteryear. Like we just have better sanitation, we have more access to food, like we have all these instruments or technologies. It's just like it's
Mm.
through the roof abundance. Yet, like, all right, this is the point I'm trying to like get to. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
doing a very well job of like
No, I'm with
get,
you. I can tell we're going somewhere.
we're going somewhere. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the dichotomy that I'm trying to get to is this picture between like I'm alone in my room and I'm in heaven, or I'm alone in my room and I'm in hell. And like
Mm.
the image that I have specifically, I'm like hell's a little dramatic. It's not like that for me,
Hmm.
thankfully, but it is like that for many people. But like for me, it's more like toggling on like on a particular evening, like yesterday. I can be like quote unquote in the pocket, and I could be practicing music. I could be preparing for a podcast tomorrow. I can be writing. I can do all these things that are relevant to my purpose or my dharma. Or even like with, say, the Mahamudra stuff, it's like I can remember sacred lineage teachings and I can rest into natural great peace. I can like remember how to like enter the view, and like
Yeah.
that's wonderful. But the fact of the matter is, like, most of the time I don't remember to do that, and I'm bored. And I'm just like, and I don't really want to meditate. I like have resistance, and I like already practice music. I don't really want to practice music. There's so many shows. I'm like asking Emma, I'm like, what do we even watch? Like, ugh. It's like there's a gazillion TV shows, there's like a gazillion movies, and it's like I don't even know what I want. Like, it's just like
Yeah.
there's this strange dichotomy between like vibrant, empowered, we're alone, we have everything we need, and we're flourishing in some promised land heaven, versus like these desolate valleys we go through.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
For me, it makes more sense, instead of thinking of it like heaven and hell, is that some days we're in a room and it feels like we're in a beautiful co-op market, like a farmer's market, and other days we feel like we're in Walmart.
Totally.
But like and we're like we're in the same place every day, but then some days, it feels like the beautiful farmers market, and other days it feels like the Walmart. And to be honest, the past couple of days, it's felt like I've been in the Walmart. And to what you're speaking to, the amount of shows, and I've been going on Instagram like a little bit more. I've been really good about not really scrolling or anything, and lately I've just been going and even spending like 5 minutes on there, and it's just honestly, I've been feeling so like overwhelmed with it. There's just so many people out there, and like my feed is good. Like my algorithm's not junk. It's good stuff, but it's like it's this interesting feeling where even though all of it on its own is like it's like high quality good stuff, but when it's that much good
Mhm.
stuff, it just feels like too much. And
Yeah.
especially as a creator, it's I can toot my own horn that I don't compare myself or whatever, but when I get on and it's everyone, their stuff is perfect. The perfect camera lens, the perfect idea, the perfect articulation, no filler words. It's like it's a lot. And
Yeah.
I got off, I was like, this is not helpful. This
Yeah.
is not helpful at all. Like I'm gonna get on, I'm gonna do my thing, and I'm gonna turn it off. And this what we return to so much, but like less is so much more. Less is so much more, and it's a hard thing because I think I can definitely say this for myself. I feel a lot of conditioning around this trap that more is more,
Yeah.
that more is better. You know,
Hmm.
more busyness, more work, more content, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Dude, comparison is so sneaky. I had that happen to me yesterday where I'd been practicing piano for like maybe 2 hours ish. I had like a really good practice session. And, I know that I'm like somewhere in like the beginning stages. I'm 36. I've been practicing 6 or 7 months. Like, I have like a generally self assured, self confident sense of like where I am as a, journey into playing for 7 months. So like when I'm in my own process, I like can notice like places where I'm happy about my sense of improvement, like, oh, I've improved 10% here or 1% there, and it's self-satisfying. But then like I slipped into just like a touch more Instagram yesterday. And then like someone I love and admire is like playing piano. They sound great. And I'm like, this is awesome. I'm like listening to it. And the whole process, I'm quote unquote enjoying it because I like, this person I love, I care about. They're playing beautiful music. It's like filling this 2 minute void where I probably shouldn't have even been on it, but I'm using the bathroom and I'm just opening Instagram and the craziness of all that. But then, it was like afterwards, I felt almost like I had gotten like hit with like a blow dart of poison. And it's just like that sense of comparison just like ugh, like seeps
yeah,
into my soul. And it's just like all of a sudden, like all this great effort and all this clear knowing of like where I am, and I'm not trying to be great, or I'm trying to be great on my own terms or something like this. And now all of a sudden I have this great person who I love. They're like, somewhere out there 2 hours north, and I feel like shit because they just crushed it for like 2 minutes on Instagram. And like it's so fucked up. Like if I even talk to
yeah,
them on the phone and they're like, "Oh, I was playing piano today too," it would be like totally different. We'd be like so
yeah. I know
happy.
you were. I saw.
I saw.
Made me feel like shit.
It made me feel like shit. Whereas if I talked to him on the phone and we were talking and like, oh, you're playing piano, like it would have been
Yeah,
so
yeah,
different. We would have like,
100%.
leveled each other up in that moment.
Yeah, that is interesting that it would be different because I makes sense to me too. It would be different, but I wonder, why that is. Um, with Instagram though, with something like music, and this definitely applies to other crafts, but music, to use that as the example, there are so many talented musicians out there.
Mm,
Like especially when your algorithm starts to bring you like music people and they're giving you exercises and cool. Like there is so many ridiculously talented musicians out there. And
mm,
this is everything for writers, for speakers, all of it. I think that's one of the things that social media and this global connective networks has shown us is like, gosh, there's just so many talented people out there, and the access that we have to learning these things that maybe we wouldn't have had as many talented musicians or something in tribal culture or whatever. But
Mm.
nowadays, because of the access, because of the nature of our society, there's just so many people, and I think it can be a really destructive cycle to get into when you're going on there and you are in the comparison, because when you go on there, if depending on your mindset, you might go on there and be like, I'm not special at all. There are literally millions of people who are better than I am at this, and so, but and with that though, I do feel that it kind of invites us into a different state of practice and in a, like a mental in our mental state around it, that I would love for you to riff on, because it, like, on the one hand it can be destructive, but then on the other hand, and maybe it's kind of a switch into more of a infinite player mindset or
Mhm.
something like this. But it there does feel like there's something there. Um,
Yeah. Well, I think of that phrase, the medium is the message, Marshall McLuhan or whoever said that. And it is kind of like the medium of Instagram, I'm not convinced is actually on the whole a healthy medium. It may in fact be, this is just totally riffing, that like we have to like deeply contort some part of our mind to make sense of how to have like a medical relationship to it. And I think of, the Godsey frame of the shimmer. Like just the other day, there's that woman, I think you follow her too, Rachel Bell.
yeah.
Rachel Bell. So I've only tuned into her content a little. I felt like some sparks, I think, of inspiration from you. I think Godsey has some sparks of inspiration. I felt some sparks of inspiration from JT. And in tuning into her, like I can feel some sparks of inspiration. I feel this sense of like, cool, she's owning her power. She has a lot of unique insights. She seems very successful. She has like an altruistic bent to her success. She's up being unconventional, climbing trees and dancing around. Oh, that's pretty cool. But like the piece that really gets the rub going inside of me in terms of say like my dedication to, unobstructed, unique genius, deeply personalized, deeply individuated, a felt sense of like I can bring out the best of Blake because I actually know Blake really well, or I can bring out the best of who I'm
Mhm.
with because I actually know them very well, is like this whole phenomenon of like the Rachel Bells of Instagram who are giving out generalized advice. I think she said something to the effect of like, the reason your brand isn't blowing up is because like the thing that you're hiding is the exact thing that's going to make you unique, or it's going to make you blow up.
Yeah.
So her basic message, I'm
Yeah.
sure you even saw the same piece of content. It's like, stop hiding
Hmm.
that thing inside of you. And, that's going to be what like, switches people on.
Right.
And like, there's a part of me that understands that and appreciates that. I'm like, yeah, I should, flex into that. I hide all sorts of different parts of myself. Like, I'm scared that if I say certain things, that certain clients would see me saying that, and then the
Right.
unique, beautiful, sacred container that we share is somehow popped because now they have this other frame of reference. And there's probably a reality to that, and it's probably also reflective of some limiting beliefs I have about the nature of the work I do and the nature of these kinds of special dynamics. But the point that I'm trying to get to here is that like there's a flip side to that, which is you should not share the parts of yourself that you're hiding. I think of David White. He has a beautiful piece on hiding, which is all about really honoring the things that are gestating inside of you, the
Hmm.
violence that we do to ourselves of thinking that we should be exposing parts of ourselves that are hiding, the
Right.
natural vulnerabilities, the natural seasons of nurturing those vulnerabilities, bringing something forward and waiting for the opportune moments to share it. And then the other piece, which I'll also name, is like more on the Dan Brown tip, which is like sacred lineage teachings were not shared because, people just would not understand them. Instead of seeing it as a gateway to awakening and direct experience, it becomes conceptual. There's like tons of really good reasons to not share things openly, publicly, and sure as hell not on Instagram because
Yeah.
of where it lands in people. It's like you're sharing the most intimate, precious thing you've been hiding in yourself because you want to grow your brand, and you just are showing it to a bunch of people pooping, and it's just like, what the heck? It's like, there's something about the like expose yourself, expose that part you've been hiding here on Instagram that has like, to me, like it has a lot of contortion to it. It's a pretty maladaptive in a lot of ways. I'm not
Yeah.
convinced it's the place to go.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that, man. Um, yeah, there seems to be this transactional culture around like authenticity and like our sharing our inner work. That's like, if I can frame my own shit in the juiciest, clickbaitiest way, then that's going to be the thing. And yeah, I think there's a lot of nuance to what you're speaking to, but I 100% agree with you, man. And yeah, I can feel personally for me it's a constant like evolution and iteration of tuning in with the nature of what I do want to share. And there's plenty of stuff that I hide. There's plenty of stuff that I hide that I don't share. But I think there's what you're speaking to. There's such a clear discernment sometimes around I'm choosing not to share this, and it's not coming from a you know like a resistance because I'm scared of what people are going to think about me. It's like a discernment that I actually don't want to put this in the field of to the field of projection and in other people's eyes. And I think there's a really important difference there. Um, and for you, for example, sure, there's things that you're hiding, and I can also confidently say as one of your friends that like, you're doing your thing. Obviously, there's things that you could say that maybe you aren't saying, and there's also the discernment of like, nah, I think I'm pretty good where I'm at. Um, and I think what for a certain person, what she's saying is is uh is real. Like I
Hmm.
remember, I think the example that she used was like a Harvard professor who was also on the side like secretly obsessed with like Palladians and channeling starseed stuff. And I was like,
Totally.
that's probably your thing, you're the Harvard professor who channels starseed people. And so I can see for examples like that where that can apply in a good way. But totally, man, I hear what you're saying. And I think something I want to double click on that you said that really struck me that I definitely can track is that Instagram truly might just be net negative.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we just, from a very objective lens, giving it to a human is, I would actually confidently guess that it probably is. And again, a lot of what we say is that there are potentially beautiful ways to use it and interface with that. But yeah, it probably is net negative. And I think about, we're talking about evolution and the biology that we have. Um, Definitely probably was not equipped to see millions of other amazingly talented musicians, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It's just like, we're not equipped for that.
It's so true, man. I actually am thinking of that Huberman podcast we were listening to. I think he said he did an experiment where he didn't look at the visual forms, he just listened to the
Yep.
audio as he was scrolling.
Yep.
I thought that was so interesting because from an
Right.
auditory place, we want to sink into, we want to rest into a certain kind of cadence and in a way relax into that cadence of the auditory sense. But our visual sense is much more adaptive and it can take in information much more quickly as it's changing. And
Yeah.
so, like, the visual field of Instagram totally works. And you can jump from like one thing of content to another thing of content to another thing of content. And even though it's like highly distractible, it somehow works with our dopamine or our sense of engagement and focus, and we'll lock in on the next piece of content really fast. Whereas Huberman was saying that just by listening to the auditory quality, you just can't scroll from one thing to the next to the next. It's so abrasive to the auditory sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really fascinating in terms of
Right.
just the different senses that we're engaging.
Yeah.
But then it's also like from this social comparison perspective, it's so tricky too, because as you're saying, like, we definitely aren't drawing from an evolutionary past in regards to knowing that there's like really millions of talented musicians out there. We're much more built for just a handful of relationships where we can deeply evaluate like where's this person coming from, and we're like pretty well equipped to like look into people's eyes and ascertain like do they have generally altruistic intentions, do they have generally like coercive intentions for one reason or another. Like we
Yeah.
have like really natural spidey senses there. And I guess what I'm just kind of trying to get to is like from that friend perspective, it's like of someone who's like a really big fan of your music. And this was actually something I want to double click on today. It's just like talking about music and music practice in general. But
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say it sort of point blank, as someone who's a huge fan of your music and someone who like has the anticipatory joy of hoping to listen to your music in live spaces or recorded spaces for years to come, I feel like very invested in like wanting to see your like self-esteem or your self-image or like positive influence come in and like, pump you up. It
Mm-hmm.
like kind of breaks my heart to imagine that like you're seeing things coming into your visual field that are like, tearing you down in that musical sense. Cause, from my perspective of just hanging out with you in Solstice and being in space and hearing you actually sing and stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I sincerely wish for you to just be nutrified and blessed up by things that empower that part of you so that that can be grown and nurtured. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Thanks, bro. Likewise. Yeah, and it's a two-way street because there's also times where I go on Instagram and do find like a practice, like a little routine, a scale thing that's amazing, so amazing. And so for me, I really feel it is like the development of that inner gatekeeper, the
Mm.
ability to go in and say, okay, I got that piece of information, I'm stopping there, I'm turning it off, and just these developmental skills of interfacing with these platforms. But I do love the idea of like the inner gatekeeper.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, maybe we can transition a little bit, but I'm just doing some reflection, as this is the last pod of this year, and I
Yeah.
think two core themes of what we talk about a lot. One is we talk about a lot about social media and the nature of our time with the overwhelming abundance and um, the call to action of training our attention, training these inner gatekeepers, learning how to interface with them in good ways, and um, yeah, really reclaiming our time, energy, and attention so that we're doing what we want to do and not getting lost. Because I think for most people, man, like the phone relationship right now is the crux of our time, like hours and hours a day and
Mm.
not doing what we want to do. So I think that's one of the topics that we talk a lot about. And then the other one is like training, living a life of training and really the tools and practices and mind frames of training in a way that's moving towards the pursuit of mastery as a lifestyle in the different domains and crafts that we're called to. And clearly those two themes interface with each other beautifully.
Mm.
Um, so just like throwing that into the space, I can definitely track for myself this year has been huge in terms of planting seeds within those two core themes and, training both of those in ways that I haven't so much in the past and really kind of up
Mm.
leveling to another level of going pro, Stephen
Mm.
Pressfield would say, that feel like they're like leading into whatever next year is, even though it's just another day, but there is this felt sense of a shift, a new season for me. Um, and it's exciting to feel the kind of foundation that we're building and just to know there's like another level, there's another step, there's, another level and level and level of going pro. And I can feel the new threshold. And so I know that you've been doing some past year review. You're about to be you're about to be a father as well. There's a lot moving through. I'm sure that you resonate with what I just spoke to and some of those themes. I know you've been focusing on that a lot. So, just open question around the review of the year, kind of what you're feeling, the themes, and whatever this next step is for you into 2026.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was a really wild experience looking over 2025. And I think it's worth just offering some preamble here for anyone who is listening that part of the end of the year review process that I did, I shared with Blake, and is just sort of in the field here, and that I'm going to be referencing, is inspired by the one, the only Tim Ferriss. Shout out to Tim Ferriss if you're listening.
Shout out Tim, friend of the pod.
That's funny. Just imagining whoever is actually listening to this is being like, "What dorks." Yeah, so friend of the pod, Tim Ferriss, personally messaged me, making sure that's the
Him and
information.
Huberman.
Yeah. I'm in a private text thread with Huberman and Ferriss, and we were making sure we were all doing our end of the year reviews. Yeah. But anyway, joking aside, Tim Ferriss has no idea who I am. Like a creepy, distant fanboy in California to his Austin, Texas empire. Um,
Clip this. Clip
yeah,
this meow.
totally, totally. We should start spamming his YouTube, try to
Yeah.
get noticed or something.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the next level, actually, just
Yeah.
spamming our favorite people's YouTubes. Maybe like hire some Russian chat bots or something
Yeah.
to.
That's what's coming, guys. If you're listening.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't have said that on the air. We're revealing our secret plans, but
Oh shoot.
dude, I think
Whatever.
Russian chat bots are the future.
Yeah.
Anyway, nice to take a little tangent there. It's like a little stretch break or something. Um, so yeah, in Tim Ferriss's end of the year review, you make a positive column and you make a negative column, and you basically just go week by week over the entire year, and you look at what in that week was positive and what in that week was negative, and you go boom, 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 52 weeks of the year. And then you kind of tally together everything that was positive and like what are the peak 20% experiences on the positive side that were like really good. And then what were the sort of peak negative experiences on the negative side. And the idea is to make sure that you're taking those out of the calendar for the year to come. So you're taking out negative experiences and then you're optimizing for the positive experiences
Mm.
using the entire last year as like strong data points in terms of what legitimately made you happy and what
Mm.
did not make you happy, which actually has a pretty pristine logic to it. I did it because I thought it had a really beautiful elegance to it. And rather than say have like the momentary zeal of inspiration of I'm going to do all these new resolutions based on some projection of what you think will make you happy, you can look at your actual life and
Mm.
say, oh, this is what actually
Yeah.
clearly made me happy, and design from there.
Yeah.
So there's a real elegance to it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then so for me doing that exercise, I put on some good music and just like got my big pad out and just, sat down and looked through the calendar. I was overwhelmed with gratitude. Sincerely, man, I feel so fortunate. I went week by week by week and I was writing down all these names, all these different things that happened. And it's just like,
Mm.
holy
How'd you
shit.
remember what you did?
So I use Google Calendar. So it's
Okay.
all there.
It's all there.
Pretty
Okay.
much all the names, everything. Like,
And stuff that wasn't outside of Google, that wasn't on Google Calendar, like different dates that you maybe just remembered that you did something that weekend.
yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of things that slipped through the cracks,
Right.
but it was actually pretty profound how much Google
Right.
Calendar jogged my memory.
Camera roll
Like,
maybe as well would be a good one.
oh, yeah. That'd be fun, actually. That's a good little app idea too. You have your Google Calendar synced up with your camera roll, so you have pictures and stuff. You could look side by
Mm.
side the season.
That'd be dope.
That's a cool idea. I wonder if
Yeah.
anyone's doing that. I think we're in the age where we're going to see like insane levels of app innovation because of all the vibe coding and
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
stuff. It's just going to be bonkers.
Yeah, probably some cool stuff.
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, but so yeah, camera roll. I didn't look through pictures, but that would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of like, oh, this retreat was happening or that client came, and I could kind of jog my memory of like just the basic kind of flow of things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, for me, just the thing was overwhelmingly positive in the sense of like this last year was basically like one huge testament of fruition, really, of living like a
Mm.
really ideal lifestyle rooted in service, rooted in serving clients, rooted in being a part of retreats that pretty consistently bring forth peak experiences, connection, friendship, purpose. And I didn't have that much on my negative side.
Mm.
It was really bonkers to feel like, there's like some people where I was like, it's not really negative. It feels a little more neutral. Like,
Yeah, can you unpack the negative a little bit without naming names? I am very curious about that.
yeah, I mean, For me, most of it was just stuff out of my control. It was just like shit that came up. I had a beef with someone that was just unfortunate, sort of he said, she said kind of stuff, and some shit got kicked up in the air, and
Mm,
it's not like I could have taken that out of the calendar, and it's not like I can schedule that in the future. It's just kind of like, that was just lifing, and it was
yeah.
kind of a negative experience for a while. Like a couple things like that.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. But in terms of like, oh, I scheduled all this stuff and I realized in retrospect I shouldn't have scheduled it because it wasn't actually fun. It was like, no, I didn't really have much of that, which,
Okay.
yeah, I feel like, such a amazing experience to, like,
Yeah.
'cause I think we're in a way, just to kind of contextualize this, like when I started out as like an entrepreneur, getting into my work as a practitioner for clients and stuff, like let's call it 5 years ago, all of this was a dream. This was all something I felt like I knew it was possible. And, like a year, like just this last year, it's just like, just living it, it's just like, this is 100% just what's happening. It's not like a question of, is this possible or not? And I
Mm,
guess I'm part of why I'm excited to
surreal.
share that is I feel like we're in like a fresh iteration of that right now. Like this is podcast 9. We were riffing on this idea. I sent it to you yesterday that apparently only like 8% of podcasts make it past 10 episodes. And so there's like a whole new wave of this. And this is what I'm trying to figure out with scheduling for this next year in terms of peak positive experiences. With having a baby on the way, starting this project with you, there's a few other things in the field that have a similar resonance where there's a lot of like this sort of fingers crossed of like, I hope the next 5 years I believe in myself in the way that I believed in myself 5 years ago, because
Mm,
who I am, let's call it 2030, if
yeah.
things that I believe are possible right now, like say this podcast really getting some legs and becoming something that becomes foundational to our flourishing sense of ecosystem or mother culture, like if the past is a reflection of the future, or if the past recreates the future, or however you say that, I'm fucking pumped. And also I feel the sense of like being a little bit in the messy middle, right? Like just like the
Yeah.
sort of like, all right, like this,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
taken these leaps of faith before. I've believed in myself before. Like I am aware that people go through seasons of life of failure, things falling apart. I don't think that's what's happening for my life now. I think the trajectory is looking really good. And that's what I'm kind of planning for. Like that was my big takeaway from doing the end of year review is like, holy shit, like thank you. Like just thank you to life itself for an amazing
Wow.
year. And also like if this isn't, fuel to believe in what's possible in this year to come, like I don't know where else you're gonna find it.
Man, I'm getting goosebumps. Really, it's so beautiful. Like it really is there's something so precious and beautiful s- specifically because I know you so well and I love you so much, but I think just in general to really witness a human landing in their dream and like landing in the actualized visions. It's really surreal. So I'm so happy for you, man. And it's also making me want to do this review so badly. I think I'm literally gonna get off and do this, and I highly encourage anyone listening to do this. Like I think this is a foundational practice of humaning,
Mm,
and it's beautiful, like what you're saying. The reflection, and I think even if you had a really hard year, I can imagine that reflection would be like a moment with yourself of realizing, wow, I went through a lot, and I'm
hmm
here, and I'm here.
Yeah.
Like I think either way, it's so incredibly valuable, and I love the style of what Tim Ferriss is doing.
Mm,
Like it's so, I think it's a subtle shift, but it's so profound and like distilling the real time evidence of your life because there are things that are working and that are leading to more goodness in your life, and there are things that are maybe taking away from that. And I think that's true for all humans. And so the practice of refining like the metacognitive awareness of what those things are and like when they're happening and being able to select for the goodness more is it's
hmm
huge.
hmm
It's really huge. um it makes me think about. So I was actually listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast with this guy named Jim Collins, who I think is a genius. He wrote the book Good to Great. They have an amazing podcast together, and he is one of these other life design nerds that I love. These people who has a cool kind of system that I enjoyed. So he has he has a review process every day where he'll do 3 columns. Okay. One of the columns is like just a sentence or two about the day. So what happened? What are the things that happened? Whatever. Um, the next column will be his number of creative hours. And so there's a whole rabbit hole of what defines creative hours, but I think in short, basically, his creative hours are things that are going towards like the bigger creative projects of his life, sort of thing. Um, and his goal, which he has been doing for I think over 20 years at this point, which is so impressive, is um, to basically get at least 1,000 creative hours a year,
Nice. Wow.
which is so inspiring to me. And one of his sort of frames for, and again, this won't necessarily be applicable to everyone. I think people can find their way into this in whatever way makes sense to them. But it's breaking down every day into spending 50% of his day on creative hours, 30% of his day on teaching, and then 20% of his day on like other admin sort of stuff, like things that need to get done, paying the taxes, which I think is a cool frame, and you can chop it up in some slightly different ways. But there's like the creative output, chewing on the ideas, interweaving the ideas, and learning intake, and then there's like the active recall element into the long-term memory. And I'm kind of going on a tangent of what was standing out to me. Let me get back to the main point. So one of the other the last column of his daily review is +2, +1, 0, -1, or -2. These are just like the grades of how was the day. And he's been doing this forever, but he keeps it all in a spreadsheet. And so then throughout when he does his big reviews at the end of the year, every 5 years, whatever it is, he can go through and literally collect every single +2 day. He can collect every single -2 day, and he can extract what happened during these days. And similar to what you're talking about, he's just gotten so clear on what leads to more +2 days,
Mm.
or what leads to more -2 days.
Mm.
And you can and so another way into what you're speaking to, but I just think that practice is so valuable, and it's in a way it's so simple,
Yeah.
and yet kind of this idea that humans have a bad intuition for like compounding interest or things over long amounts of time. Um, and the last piece I want to tie in here, and then I'll throw the ball back into your court, is I'm definitely doing this, have been doing this for a little bit, this kind of daily review style thing. But I think there's a cool feedback loop that happens when you do a review like you did, where now it almost is incentivizing you more to be more tedious with how you're tracking your day-to-day life, because you know there's going to be a future version of you that will come back and review, and he will be grateful that you gave him more data and more clarity around
Mm.
what you were doing.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you're getting clearer on what exactly you want to be writing or tracking within the day-to-day as a metric of, the review process later kind of thing.
Mm. Yeah, man. It's actually really interesting because it feels like one of the things that we're up to here, we kind of got super, super jazzed on this as we were just entering into podcast territory, which is this idea of building the mother culture. And it's something I'm reminding myself a lot of, especially like the day before coming into recording an episode, because it feels like there's for me in my own mind, like the periods where we're, in the clarity and in the joy and in the feeling of nourishing connection. And then there's like the sort of desolate, boring moments where it's like, all right, well, the podcast is in 36 hours and got a lot of time to fill, and I'm not particularly inspired by this, or I'm not particularly inspired by that. And so there's sort of this like patience periods. And I think of like patience as like a good definition for like protecting or nurturing things that like in the moment aren't being actualized, but are a part of some kind of bigger actualization period. But the whole reason I'm somehow got on this tangent is like this idea of we're building the mother culture right now, which is in a lot of ways like churning the soil. You know, we're churning the soil right now, making it like fertile soil for all these different seeds that we planted. But you know, the sense of like being able to like look back in a year and actually be able to have the evidence of every single time that we've shown up, like I can feel for myself, like my future self is definitely like giving me a lot of little like pats on the shoulder, or, you know, like little angels on the shoulder, God winks or something, around just the sense of like, hey man, like you want to look back at a certain point in time and see that you stayed with it. I'm saying that to myself, but I suppose I'm saying that to you too. But I'm
Yeah,
curious,
yeah.
does that land in regards to like the, I don't know, just like the building up of a repertoire?
100%, man. And um, it feels relevant to speak to because everyone's so obsessed with New Year's resolutions. And for better or for worse, it is a time of fresh start for a lot of people where they're trying something new, whether or not you hate the idea of a resolution. Um, and I think something we've definitely spoken to that you're nailing right now is like being in conversation with your future self around some of this. I've certainly had very potent moments in the middle of big behavior change initiations, forge style stuff, of like feeling so clearly my future self being so grateful for me. You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much. Like, I'm living this life because of you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something, I think, so powerful around that whenever we're doing anything. Whenever we're doing anything, whenever we're changing, starting a podcast, doing our daily reviews, whatever it is, like really being able to dream into that horizon where the collected efforts of your current self are growing such rich fruits for your future life to be nourished by.
Yeah.
I think it's a key within life that, you know, books like Atomic Habits don't necessarily touch on because it is a bit mystical or something. But and it makes me think about I heard this from Godzi, but apparently they did like a scientific study with people, and certain people, when they think about their future self or their future life, it shows up within their like brain chemistry as if they are thinking about a family member, someone that they know, versus the other group of people, when they thought about their future self or their future life, it showed up as if it was a stranger, someone that they didn't know. And that the people, I don't exactly remember the metric, whether it was people who achieved something great or people who were statistically more successful, something like this. It was the people who it showed up as if it was their own family member. There is a level of familiarity with that. And I think that is so powerful, and is what we're really talking about right now, is becoming family members with, you know, your future self, and
Mm-hmm.
having like an intimate dialogue on a more regular basis.
Yeah. I want to read a quote actually. I feel like there's a tie-in here. It might not be totally obvious, but it might be kind of a nice area for us to bring some attention kind of as the, I don't know if we're in the final chapter or if we're going to go for another hour, but
Yeah.
assuming we're in some kind of arc
Yeah,
here
yeah.
with the podcast. You know, we know that self-belief is like really key to all this. Believing in yourself now, believing in the future version of yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I got this book by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil, and
Cool.
it's called The Secrets to Freedom and Success. Started reading it yesterday, and I got totally bored and distracted, and I'm gonna give it another shot and see if I actually stick with it or not. It's one of those moments where it's like, I remember liking
Got a good
Napoleon
quote
Hill.
out of it though.
I got a good quote out of it. Yeah,
Also,
exactly.
quickly, just to say, I think this is the podcast of trying to tie things together that seemingly seems so unrelated. It's like we're just at the gym trying to like tie crazy ideas together.
For sure, man. I mean, welcome to my brain.
Me too.
I remember when I was just to run on that for a second. I remember when I was in grad school at CIS, I would just bring in the most odd and bizarre stuff, and people would just look at me like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And that was like one of the first times like it really dawned on me of just like how idiosyncratic my brain is. Where
Yeah.
like for me, I'm sitting in the class and I'm like, this is such an obvious connection. We're talking about blah blah blah, and therefore blah 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 blah, and then people would be like, "What the like? Where did that come from?"
Yeah, yeah.
And I just be like, okay, yeah, I guess my brain's working different. I'm thinking
Uh-huh.
about things in a different way over
Yeah.
here.
You're missing a link on the hemispheres.
Totally. Right side, left side, bitches. Yeah, no, I think at the time, it's so funny, right? Actually, this ties into self-belief, right? Because it was like I had this feeling, even though I was like a total rainbow sheep in those classrooms, I had a feeling I was like, this is gonna go well for me. Y'all might think I'm really weird, but I think I'm onto something, and
Hmm.
it's fucking right, bitches.
Rainbow sheep, baby. I've
I'm a
never heard
rainbow
that.
sheep into. Yeah. Anyway. So self-belief. I'm gonna read this quote, and I feel like we should riff for a little bit on like this, this inner game of self-belief and how it ties into this past self, present self, future self. So Napoleon Hill, he said, "Fear is the tool of a man-made devil. Self-confident faith in oneself is both the man-made weapon which defeats this devil and the man-made tool which builds a triumphant life." And it is more than that. It is the link to the irresistible forces of the universe which stand behind a man who does not believe in failure and defeat as being anything but temporary experiences.
Mm,
And so there's a lot to unpack here, but one of the things that like really struck a chord for me is that it's like in being ridiculously successful, there are like so many moments where we have to look at, okay, actually, this was the tie in too I wanted to talk about in the podcast. So good. I'm glad it's all because you were riffing, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago on Instagram about the Valley of Disappointment. I think that's what it's called, Valley of
yeah.
Disappointment.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, from Atomic Habits, the sense of going through the Valley of Disappointment. And I feel like it's got to be one of the most deciding factors of really becoming truly the image of what we know is possible is
Yeah.
being in like countless moments where that sense of failure or defeat is just temporary, like being in the
Yeah.
valley of disappointment is just temporary versus reifying it and making it a thing that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. Yeah, maybe you can unpack the Valley of Disappointment just for anyone listening really quick so we can explore the territory.
Yeah, it's such a helpful image. I love that you're thinking about it, and I love the way you were talking about it. But just as a general description here for anyone who's listening, this would be awesome where someone like Miel or someone would put the little graphic up and we're like, you'll see it on the screen,
Yeah.
once it goes live.
Maybe.
Hey, all right, you better be listening to this, Miel. Opportunities barking, knocking on your door. Um, anyway, so the Valley of Defeat. So the basic
Disappointment.
disappointment.
Defeated.
The Valley of Defeat.
Someone's in the valley.
Yeah.
All right.
Valley of Defeat sounds way worse.
Darth Vader's lurking there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's like the underworld.
yeah.
So anyway, the basic event image, correct me if I get this wrong, is we basically think progress is going to be linear. It's going to be up and to the right. It's going to be a straight line. So it's like we have a graph and, the sense of daily progress is just, more or less like up and to the right.
Right.
But what um, Thomas Clearly,
James Clear.
James Clear. James Clear points out is that like we usually go through this valley that's like going down, like our sense of skill or our sense of competency like will suck more before it starts going up and to the right. I
Yeah.
mean, this is kind of tied into that Ito Portal idea of like if you're gonna get stronger, you're gonna feel weak. If you're gonna get smarter, you're gonna feel dumb. So you have to
Mm.
like go through this period of time as you're putting in effort where it actually feels like you're having worse diminishing returns. Things are actually harder. Your sense of progress is like receding
Right.
before you actually get to the good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful.
How'd I do? Is that more or less the visual?
Yeah, no, I'm just like closing my eyes, trying to imagine if, like, because I know what it looks like, but I'm just imagining. Yeah, basically, what really happens is instead of a straight line up to the right, it's more of like actually a completely horizontal line in the beginning with very small incremental steps up, and then after a certain amount of time, it's just like exponential growth where the line completely skyrockets and then it crosses paths with the line of what we think actually happens. But no, I think you did a beautiful job, man. Yeah, and what landed with that quote was the last part of that quote actually, where it says something just about the temporary nature of failure and defeat. That really is what stuck with me.
Yeah, tell me more. Talk to me.
Yeah, well, it's something we've talked about so much, and it's probably something we always will talk about. You know, I think something we started with in this conversation, the idea of like the necessity of failing over and over until we strike gold, but how intimidating that is and how much that asks of us because of maybe some of our evolutionary roots and some of these forces that go against failing or making mistakes or being in the trying, being in that trying phase.
Mm.
Um, and being in the valley, you know, it's all connected. It's all the same thing, but it's just like being in the valley, being in the valley of making mistakes, of trying again, of over repetition, and that tends to be where we question if we've made any progress at all, if we're getting anywhere at all, if any of this is worth it, if we'll ever actually make it out, where is the success, all of that, and that's where so many people fall off. And so for me, it's making me think about the idea of recommitting and like the recommitment kink, which you can skin up in many different ways, habit change, starting a career, whatever it is. But like really the skill is how quickly can we fall off of the horse, because we will, and get back on. Um, and so, you know, for me, that's been showing up a lot with like Instagram and more business stuff where I'm questioning what's the point, and I'm not getting the results I want, and these sorts of ideas. And so, you know, how quickly can I catch myself going down that rabbit hole and compassionately just realize that I'm in the valley, you know? And how quickly can I get back onto the orientation where I recognize the nature of the game. And within the nature of the game, though, it's recognizing the inevitability of the game.
Mm.
That through putting my reps in the valley, assuming that I am integrating the right feedback, which I trust in my ability to do so, it's like really feeling into the inevitability of it.
Yeah.
So it's like put in the reps. This is just the nature of it. Everyone that you've admired who's ever done something great had to fail many, 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 many times. And on the other side of that, recognizing the inevitability of really conceited, disciplined, thoughtful effort over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's it, right? That's the self-confident faith aspect of that, where it's like in feeling defeated, in feeling failure as a temporary experience, which I'm empathizing with you as you're speaking to it, just like the like, kind of lived terrain of that. There's such an interesting aspect of like, how can this strengthen self-confident faith? How can this strengthen that you can take in the feedback, or you can take in the learning, or you can self-reflect in a way that's additive and nurturing? And because in a lot of moments, and this would be something it'd be lovely to hear your thoughts on. I think of this fairly regularly, which is like in trying moments, we're gonna take away some kind of lesson. We're gonna learn something. We're gonna make a decision about what our experience means, and that can be empowering and reorienting. But those can also be the moments where we do say quit, or we do feel failure, or we do feel the sense of, oh, what is the point, or is it really worth the effort, or is it really worth, do I have what it takes, or something like this.
Yeah. For sure, man. And for some people, that might be a 5 year recommitment cycle,
Mm.
where it takes that long to try again. And unfortunately for some people, they never try again. Um, that experience of what you're talking about for some people might have occurred like 5 years old,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
really core moment of life territory that really 5 years old, you got the feedback from the environment and there wasn't proper nurturing or care to learn to recommit, to learn that it's okay that I didn't do, it's okay, there's room for improvement, and I love you, and I love that you're creating and you're doing what you want to do and keep going. Like that wasn't there,
Yeah.
and then it's a lifetime of living out that experience, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
how unfortunate and sad, and my heart goes out to those people. And I think that's probably actually more of a common experience. um and I talking about self-expression and why is it so intense for so many people to express themselves, whether it's on Instagram or some other medium or public speaking, like in that podcast. Why is it so intense for people? And I think this points to that intensity, that these are the kinds of childhoods and lived experiences we're contending with. And if it wasn't you who directly experienced that as a kid, maybe it was your parents or their parents, and it's just like this intergenerational like lineage passing of just such unexpressed humans.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it really ties into the sense of status equaling survivability. And so it's like if we're having diminishing self status, whether it's real or perceived, on a very tangible level, we're hardwired to feel like that's threatening.
Yeah. I just you were making fun of my word slip last podcast. I've been loving the words today.
Yeah.
Huberman. Last time I said like Instagram or something like that.
Instagram.
Anyway, keep
Yeah.
going. It's beautiful.
Yeah. No, no. Just we're worth. We're working with this sense of like status equal survivability. And I think on a very deep level, we know that if our status is going up, like if people are listening to this podcast or if we're getting more followers on Instagram, those are external metrics. They may or may not matter, but on some level that I think is the associative link. Is it's like more followers on Instagram equals more opportunities for, let's call it, conversions into work. More conversions into work that pays money is quite literally food on the table.
Yeah.
Like, whereas no one paying attention, feeling irrelevant, that's more or less probably triggering like a deep evolutionary sense of abandonment. I could die, and a despairing sense of aloneness or something like this.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, though, is also the idea that if I don't say anything, then I'll keep my status. I have a better chance of keeping my status if I don't say anything
Yeah.
versus if I do,
Yeah.
you know, which definitely tracks my lived experience of middle school and high school. Like it
Hmm.
was like, be very careful with what I say. And
Yeah.
it's probably actually better that I don't say what I want to say, and that's my better chance of keeping my status.
Yeah. Dude, middle school is interesting because I think it's very primal. But what you see with animals and pecking orders and like the way that hierarchies are established is it's like essentially quick moments of discrete high intensity violence that like establishes the pecking order and
Yeah.
then like perceived normality. This happens in like wolf packs and stuff, and different animals do this. Like actually, just a couple weeks ago, I saw some bucks sparring out in the field, and it's like the males are playing, but on some level, they're also figuring out like who's stronger and stuff. And this kind of thing happens all the time in middle school, where it's like the pecking orders are like figured out in these like almost like discrete moments of like high intensity violence, and then it's just like, okay, that's where we are, and then we're like maintaining some kind of calm. Or like
Interesting.
it also happens intellectually too, where it's like you do the spelling bee and you figure out really quick like, oh, this kid can spell all the words and that kid can't, and it's like these,
Right.
it happens fast, and then on
Yeah.
some level everyone knows it,
Yeah.
And it becomes like this invisible form that we're like this invisible mold that we're living in.
Mm. That's really interesting to me. It does make sense that it happens really fast. Like it happens really fast. People find their place really quickly.
Yeah, I mean that's the definitely animal kingdom stuff too, or it's just like you see it in families too. It's like an older brother will make like a quick quip, and then like younger brother silent. I'm speaking a little bit from my own life there. It happens in family systems all the time, where it's just like discrete moments of like an aggressive something, and then the pecking order is like reestablished.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Man, well, I'm feeling ready to land the plane in a moment. You tracking that?
Let's do it, man. Let's land
Yeah.
this plane.
Yeah, I'm just curious. We spoke a bit to the New Year's stuff. Yeah, it's okay if not, but I'm curious if there's any other pieces that you're holding closely going into 2026, things you're excited about. It is interesting to me that you're living out like a 5-year vision that has come to fruition, and yet the clock is resetting and there's a new horizon that's opening, and finding
Yeah.
yourself within the valley again. And yeah, anything else there?
Yeah. Well, I'm tremendously bullish about the future. I'm very optimistic. I'm very excited. I feel like each of these podcasts is its own little like stepping stone into building a mother culture. So I'm very excited about what we're up to here. I'm extremely excited about having a child. It's like so remarkable feeling this little baby gestating in Emma, and there's like more movement happening, and just like having these moments of imagining what it's going to be like to see this little child out there and like look into their eyes and like see them make sense of this world. And that comes with like a whole sense of like nervous anomalies of just like, oh my god, like how much is my life going to change, or how much my routine's going to change. It feels like there's tons of change in the air. But I'd say like the general feeling is like this is definitely the time for full renaissance, full
Mm,
flourishing, and
mm,
it's not letting anything get in the way. So
mm.
I feel like my sense of so this is a fun little Hormozy tie-in. I'm probably not going to be able to express the whole point, but basically for his kind of sensing of like the kind of work I'm in, service-oriented work, it's all slow and steady. He like mapped out these different companies and different business models and like kind of how they look on the different graphs of life. But I would say last year was an amazing year, and I'm basically just looking to recreate the same pattern, just slow and steady this year into next year, and just let the path of mastery unfold.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah. You got any final words for us, my man? Anything you want to touch on before we close this out?
Yeah, a couple things. Um, Double down on what you said around this is the time for full renaissance. Um, just that vibe, man. Like this is the time. This is the time, and I think that's what I've been feeling with what I was saying about 2025. It felt like a really important, beautiful year of laying the groundwork. And I'm excited to keep building on top of that and just keep going, and refining the process. And but one thing I want to briefly riff on, which is in this new book that I'm listening to called 10x is easier than 2x, which I think is really interesting, and there's some serious codes in here. And one of the ideas, or I guess one of the core idea really, is that most people are in this 2x model, which is that if I want to take the next step or achieve more results, I'm just going to basically do double the effort or something like this. And so I want more time, money, energy, or something like, okay, I want more money next year. I want to do better. Okay, I'm just going to work harder. That's kind of the model. And their whole premise and what they're advocating for is the 10x model, which if you look at what would 10x from where I'm at be, it's going to require a complete shifting of everything. Now, I'm literally just started it, but one of the ideas that's really lighting me up is that I think in a way our culture has been conditioned into this 2x model of just like incremental one step. Now one step, you climb the corporate ladder one step at a time, one step at a time. And I think part of that is because it feels safe, even though that model is much more built on like busy, like to get more success and productivity, you just need to become busier. You just need to do more. That's kind of the idea in our culture. And this idea of like self-worth equals busyness versus someone like a Tim Ferriss who's just gotten so incredibly good at leveraging time and energy to achieve maximal output. But he's completely kind of deconditioned this idea that busyness equals value or productivity or something like this.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the pieces with the 10x, for example, is that having a 10x in your life or just like these leaps, they're going to require a complete like reorganization of your entire kind of identity. And I think that's an interesting reasons why I think a lot of people are within this 2x model is because it feels safe to our current identity. It's within the realm of possibility. The reason we're not looking to a 10x is because our current identity doesn't believe it would be possible in a way. Because the thing is to actualize a 10x, a different person would come out on the other side. That's kind of the idea. And so
Nice.
all of that to say, um, I certainly am someone who can get caught in this like just show up every day, but then misses out on these moments of like rest and integration and recharge. And so I took the whole week off this week, and I'm going to be doing the review and things like this. And I think about the Tim Ferrisses of the world and whatnot. These are people who have gotten this kind of thing down, where they'll take a week off, 2 weeks off, and it's just like full on pause and really thinking about what would that 10x leap be, and what is my current process? How does my current process need to change, reorganize around this goal, so it makes sense versus just trying to do the same thing over and over, then just trying to do it more, pretty much adding more to it. And so I'm in that right now, and it's exciting because there's a question mark, and I can feel that there's something in the baking in the oven around what is the new horizon, what is the thing that I want to point my arrow at, and maybe what's the changes in my day-to-day life, so that I'm
Mhm.
working towards that and not just doing more. So that's exciting to me.
That is amazing, man. I think that's totally the correct way of seeing things right now. It's like you're in a 10x gestation.
Yeah,
That really tracks as true.
yeah, man. Thanks.
Really solid, man. This has been great. I think I'm going to be able to say it without too much hilariousness or too much diminishing myself with comedic gesture. But from the depths of my heart, if anyone is listening, please like and subscribe.
You didn't do it fully seriously. There was a little bit of a slip
A
there.
little bit of a clown in there. Please, please like and subscribe.
That should be one of your New Year goals, would be to be able to ask people to like and subscribe from a sincere, genuine place.
I know. It's a real 10x identity shift for me. It really is.
Yeah. No,
I'm
I
getting
think we
there.
just need to get like me able to edit in like the South Park thing of like and subscribe. Smash
Totally.
that like button. Let's
Smash that
go.
like button.
Yeah, yeah.
Totally, man. All right. Well, this has been amazing. Let's
Yeah, yeah.
anything to close out with for the people?
See y'all in 2026. It's gonna be a good one.
Let's go.